We've spent the majority of our time talking about if it will be Will Wade, but you got to hear both sides. What if it isn't Will Wade?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Nissan. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned with us for the Nissan Armada Team of the Week released later in the episode. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we're still here talking about Will Wade. Don't expect that to change for the rest of this week, but we spoke yesterday about how things are kind of going quieter at this point in the week. Obviously, NC State met with Will Wade at the end of last week and potentially a second time over the weekend. But since those points, the talks have subsided. The noise has subsided. The buzz is kind of withered away. And that's understandable because if we are under the belief that NC State and Will Wade are coming to an agreement, he still has a game to prep for. McNeese State still has a NCAA tournament game to play on Thursday. So I'm not really surprised to hear that the buzz has certainly died down, especially on Monday and Tuesday. So I want to preface this before we really get into it. I believe it will be Will Wade. I think NC State should hire Will Wade. But Kenton, let's talk about the scenario on if it's not Will Wade, because NC State has had situations in the past. We thought that we were going to hire John Calipari. Did not happen. We thought that perhaps we'd bring in Rick Barnes behind him. Did not happen. We thought we were going to have Shaka Smart in 2011. Did not happen. We've been on the goal line before and did not punch it in. So if it's not Will Wade, Kenton, what's going to happen to NC State?
Well, the program as a collective is going to sit in their room by themselves with a glass of whiskey playing the song Chamber of Reflection. By the way, don't actually listen to that song by yourself. It's a very sad song. It's extremely sad. But in all seriousness, this would send folks into the type of tailspin that would feel like it's never going to be us. Like we'll never be long-term sustainably successful ever at one of the three revenue-generating sports. And that will be the case because we're really two revenue-generating sports. And that will be that way because it seems like everything is working out in the perfect order. McCollum to Indiana is said to be like something that is gaining a ton of steam. You've got Brownell just signing an extension last year. You've got all of the teams where they're like, oh yeah, he could go here, he could go there. All of those teams have made the tournament pretty much, like all of them. So they're probably going to still be playing. It's a moment where it's like the hottest coach, a coach that if he were on the market last year, no doubt Kentucky would come out and say, hey, we may have blue grass, but our money's green, brother. You take as many of these ducats as you want and we'll work it out. As well as Arkansas having an opening, as well as so many different teams having openings for all of these different reasons. It's not that way where many big money teams have openings this particular time around. So I look at that and I say, this is a moment that would literally send folks into deep fire. And I will say this, I'm not even going to judge you and say you're wrong, because this is all of the chatter that I've been hearing from the jump has been, hey, it's going to be Will Wade. It's going to be Will Wade. Like that's, and again, I kept certain things under wraps because I kind of couldn't come out and say, oh yeah, this is what's happening. But this is by all intents from day one of Keatts getting fired. I heard, hey, this is it. And to see that not materialize, that would be a gut punch doesn't properly describe it. It'd be a Mike Tyson uppercut to the ribs. And I'm talking prime Mike Tyson, not I broke my back spinal. No, before that. I'm talking prime, like youngest heavyweight champion in the world, absolutely crushing one or two of your ribs here.
It might be Mike Tyson and then Muhammad Ali right behind him. That's how bad this would hurt. And to further Kenton's point here, That is my worry. Now, again, I'm not worried. I do think it's going to be Will Wade. One more time, just in case you hear me, I do think it's going to be Will Wade.
There you go.
But the fan base is so bought into this right now, you can't help but feel like, what if this doesn't work? What if this plane doesn't get landed? Because, again, we've been in similar situations to this one before. I worry a lot about the NIL and the way that it poured in after Keatts was fired, essentially under the impression that it would be Will Wade or someone like Will Wade, someone that can come in and ignite the fan base, give this program a jolt to try and capitalize on the momentum that we didn't use this year coming out of the Final Four in the ACC championship. This fan base has been so unbelievably bought in just a week's time. I fear that if it ends up being anyone else, will essentially hit like a rock bottom. I really worry about this fan base will have a crash out like you've never seen before. If you thought it was bad this year, missing the ACC tournament and watching NC State basketball struggle week in and week out, if you miss on Will Wade, it feels like 5 to 10 times worse. And so I want to bring up a clip. And again, to reiterate for the third time here, I'm not doing this to scare anyone. I just think it's worth talking about. We mentioned that if potentially Clemson has an opening, if Brownell moves on. Now, Kenton just told you again, he did sign that extension this past summer, so maybe he won't. But if he does, I came across a clip after McNeese found out they will be playing Clemson in the opening round, and Will Wade had some thoughts about facing his alma mater.
I went to Clemson. They're a team I follow, both in football, basketball, baseball, all sports. But it'll be a tough matchup. No, I mean, shoot, first time I hear that fight song, I twirl my arm for the ON, but no, I'm just joking. I mean, look, I've been gone a long time. I graduated in 05-ish or something like that. I mean, I've been gone a long time, and I was on staff there a couple of years. So I've been gone a long time. I follow the football program very closely. Y'all all know that. We don't practice when they play football. But I've been gone a long time, and it's a great place, great people. I know a lot of folks there still, and all my college friends, I'm sure my phone will have some beautiful messages when I check them. So, but yeah, it's a great place. But once that ball goes up, man, I'm all McNeese.
All right, so there's Will Wade talking about facing Clemson in the first round. And again, I'm not worried, but that sounds like the biggest tiger that has ever tigered before. He sounds through and through like a Clemson guy. And to some certain degree here, I find it hard to believe that if it does actually come down to NC State and Clemson, that he would wholeheartedly 100% buy into being at NC State.
Grayson, stop worrying these people, man.
I'm not trying.
Yeah, I know. That's what you do. That's what you do. Let me tell you something. If I became a head coach, right, and there was two options, and it was between State and somewhere else, and I had, I'd pretty much been like not just in bed with this other school, but it's like damn near a done deal. And then I had to go play NC State in the bowl game, right? I wouldn't be like, of course I'd say, hey, man, when they say that's another Wolfpack, I might chant with them when they say first down, of course, right? Yeah, get a little hand waving going. But the reality of it is that's just how alums talk about their school.
Yeah.
Like that's all that is. It's not a, I'll tell you, if this was a biggest tiger to ever tiger situation, it would have been something like, oh, that's my place. I love that place. It is the greatest place on earth. There is not a single program like it in any regard, in any sport. I don't care what you say, how you cut it, how you slice it. Clemson is where it's at. And if you get a chance to jump on that Clemson bandwagon, you don't ask no questions, you just go. But when the ball tips off, I have to beat that wonderful school. So, that to me would be like, hold on, we're in trouble. But he sounds like an alum that's proud of the success that his school has had, particularly in football. And that's all that is. I'm not worried. I'm fine. I'm good with that because, again, I know it. As a guy that's played for this university, I know it. I can sense there's pride in his school. There's care for his alma mater. Cool. Don't matter none to me, okay? I don't need to know that my old lady would never date Idris Elba. That's not what I need to know. I just need to know that I'm your choice over him right now. Like, this is where we're at, okay? I don't need you to disavow the man. And granted, that's a little different because if Idris Elba was your ex, I feel like I'm batting in very good territory now. But you get the point. You get the point. It is where he graduated from. It means something to him, but it's not the whole world.
It's you versus the guy that Will Wade told you not to worry about. But no,
see, now you're making it that. See, now you're getting people worried because you always know the person you're told not to worry about is exactly who you should be worried about.
Obviously, yeah. What did you expect him to say about his alma mater, where he went to school? Obviously, he began his career as a graduate assistant. He has since moved on, and it's been, like you said, 20 years since he's been at Clemson, even though he still has connections there. Some of the talking points I've seen around the idea that Will Wade would potentially prefer NC State to Clemson is that if you go to Clemson, you're always going to be second fiddle to Dabo. You're always going to be second fiddle to the football program. And the funding there, I'm sure, is getting incrementally skewed toward football as they continue their own travels into the new space of NIL. But NC State, and I know Dave Doran, if he sees this, he might come after us both. NC State is historically a basketball school. And I think after what you saw last year, NC State going to the Final Four and the school pride come out from the depths of 40 years of mediocrity, it kind of shows the country what NC State can be again. And that's why I talked so much about, how attractive of a spot that NC State is. When you wake up the fan base and you get everybody bought in financially and, spiritually, metaphorically, whatever it is, this place can be a great place to be a head coach of college basketball. The ACC has been down, and that's going to be a large part of conversation, I'm sure, into this week because the Dirty Foot Club used a little nepotism, not surprising to any of us, but used a little nepotism to get into the dance. The ACC has been down, and the ACC needs more coaches like Will Wade. And more heavy than that, NC State needs a coach like Will Wade. And I do believe that Will Wade understands that. I do think, I've talked about this already, his personality aligns very firmly with the NC State mentality. We have something to prove, and so does he. He has that blank you mentality. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to beat you. And NC State has desperately wanted to have that for nearly 40 years. Ever since Jimmy V was here, we have wanted to feel like that, and we haven't. So I do think this is a match made in heaven. Not trying to scare anybody, but I do think it's worth talking about because NC State has been on that goal line before and metaphorically fumbled. So I think it's going to happen this time. We're going to punch it in from the goal line. Boo Corrigan's going to take us to the promised land. He's going to land his legacy commitment here. But I do think it's worth talking about. Let us know what y'all think in the comments. If it's not Will Wade, what happens to NC State? Coming up next, we're going to get into remembering the Coach Keatts era. Things are moving so fast. We haven't even talked about this yet. How will you remember Coach Kevin Keatts? This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Tuesday sponsor is Nissan. The Nissan Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College Basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From the top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is the North Carolina Tar Heels. It's the Florida Gators. Why on earth would I ever talk about them? The Florida Gators, led by Walter Clayton's 17 points per game, just dominated the SEC tournament, winning each game by at least 9 points. Not only did Florida grab the fourth number one overall seed, but they are the nation's most efficient offense. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. That's exactly what the Florida Gators have been up to lately. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Our second Tuesday sponsor is Fabric. Life moves fast, and especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exams are required. As a parent, you simply just want to make sure your family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric can give you that peace of mind. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 per day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't even have to break the bank. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric, MEETFABRIC, meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Go collect your life insurance at Fabric today. Middle portion of our Tuesday show. I do want to take the time, while things are relatively slower right now, to talk about Kevin Keatts. Yes, because things have been moving at a breakneck pace over the course of the last week. Obviously, Keatts was released 2 Sundays ago. The coaching search ensued essentially immediately. I'm talking like less than an hour after that news had dropped. We've been so caught up in that. I don't think we've really processed yet that Coach Keatts has been relieved of his duties. And I was talking to some friends the other day. I personally have not even processed that it happened. And I saw ACC State fan on Twitter kind of said the same thing. It's hard to even engage in all these coaching search talks now because you still have to process Keatts is gone. And especially after what we saw last year, the heights that he returned us to, if only for a number of weeks, he will always be remembered. And there's also the downside of that because there's a lot of mediocrity and ultimately the reason that he was released from his position. But Kenton, we'll get the ball rolling here. What are some of the top things that you will remember the Kevin Keatts era by?
I mean, obviously ushering us out of the NCAA sanctions and kind of that dark cloud over our head. And we were respectable during that time. Were we a great team? No. But were we a team that people looked at and was like, oh, that's an easy W against NC State? No. Other than top teams, and even then, you know, it was the team played hard. They were going to give you they were going to give good teams a scare. You're going to have to show up and be on your P's and Q's to beat them. So ushering us through that, and beyond that, he's a guy that was uniquely him. He's one of those guys that, you know, when he retires, he's going right off into the sunset with My Way by Frank Sinatra playing, because he is very much so, for better or for worse, he does things in his way, and his way is his way, right? Like no other coaches are doing ice cream every time they get a win on the road, but Coach Keatts is like, this is what I do. This is how I do it. Y'all not gonna make me stop. So, you know, that's again, I'll remember him as a guy that took NC State to heights we have not seen in our lifetime, quite honestly. And beyond that, a man that very much so was himself. Because even when it doesn't always work out, I do somewhat enjoy people who are uniquely themselves in a way where it's like, you're just you. You're just for good, for bad, for, you know, certain people where I'm just like, oh, you being you isn't always a good thing. It's still like you're you, and you stick to your guns and go by what you do, march to the beat of your own drum in a way that at times is quite admirable.
I remember after the run had ended and Coach Keatts was doing some interviews. I think it was with Joe Giglio, actually, ironically enough. Giglio was kind of asking him, when you were in the ACC tournament there, you're playing Louisville, did you ever get at least a little bit nervous thinking that possibly your job was on the line? And Keatts was like emphatically saying, never thought about it, never saw it that way, didn't feel like I was coaching for my job. And I was like, Kevin, what are we, but I respected that to a certain degree. He was so invested in himself and what the team was doing that week, he wouldn't allow himself to even think about the possibility, even though everybody knew what the real deal was. So I can understand what you're saying there, Kenton, for sure. He was so bought into himself and believed in his system and his players. I can certainly understand that. I'm also glad you brought up the ice cream thing, because sentimentally, that's something I'm going to miss like a lot. Growing up, when I played travel baseball, we did a very similar thing. When we won on the road or we won a big game or a big series, we would go get ice cream. And so I really resonated with that. And I'll tell you right now, every single time they earned ice cream over the Keatts tenure, I also took myself out and got ice cream. I wanted to buy in and feel something with the program in that way. So I'm going to miss that. And regardless on if it's Will Wade or anyone else, I mean, maybe we'll still do it anyway, because maybe we can turn it into like an NC State tradition, but I'm going to miss that. And Keatts decking out his custom merch and the ice cream shirts and the ice cream shoes. that stuff was always very endearing to me. And I love that he was himself. And he seemed to be very well liked by the majority of the players. He seemed like a player's coach. He would hang out with them. He played ping pong with them, half-court shots in the Dale Center, kind of clip farming at some points. Your head coach is clip farming. I thought that was funny at times as well. So I will remember him fondly for little things like that. I'll also remember him an era of missed opportunity. I think of all the players that never really even got here. I would even loop in MJ Rice in that conversation. I was over the moon about MJ Rice coming to NC State. I thought he was going to be a program changer. You know, for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and I was sad to see him go. But you think of other guys like Isaiah Miranda or Jalen LeCue. Oh, my God. Jalen LeCue. I swore he was the one. I thought he was the next Russell Westbrook. I thought he was going to be a mixture of Kevin Durant. I thought he had it all. Same with Josh Hall. Remember Josh Hall? Oh, my God.
Josh Hall, yeah.
Josh Hall haunted me on so many nights after he moved on and did not come to State. So many big names, and was known as the none and done coach there for quite some time. And I kind of felt bad for him at some points because it really wasn't even his fault. It's just the kid decided to, try and take his talents to the NBA, and missing on so many recruits like that. I think that's kind of a defining feature of his tenure, because you think about if you did get a Jalen LeCue or you did get a Josh Hall, what would that have looked like when you had other guys like Shaq Moore and Cam Hayes and those guys? If they all panned out, what would have been the finalized product? Well, we'll never know. And so I think an era of missed opportunity and the constant roster reconstruction, which was supposed to be a strong suit with Keatts coming out of the Hargrave Academy in his prior years, it just never really worked out. And of course, I say all that to say, I will always remember Keatts for the magic that we experienced last March. The unexpected, when none of us even expected that it could be a possibility. 5 games in 5 days to march through the ACC tournament. The first time it's ever been done in the ACC. Who knows if we'll ever see something like that again. I know UConn did it with Kemba Walker. Delaware almost did it this year in the CAA conference, but they came up a game short. And then to do that, just to get into March Madness, and then you still go to the Final Four. Unreal. And I honestly don't think we'll ever see something like that ever again. And I thank God, like every day, it was NC State that it had to happen to. What other school could be the one to have a run like that after we witnessed it in 1983 with Jimmy V? It's kind of melancholy to see Keatts move on, but at the same time, it is exciting. And I say that respectfully because NC State is due for a new energy. They need this new jolt, this burst, this uptick in excitement in the program because it's been dying off these last couple of years. And after you see what we could do last year in the postseason, imagine if NC State could do that consistently. And that's where the hunger for a new coach and a new energy comes from. So it was time. I think pretty much everyone will agree on it was time. Keatts had to be relieved of his duties. NC State had to move on to take a big swing at a name like Will Wade. But Keatts will forever be remembered. I mean, flags fly forever. I say that for a reason. Those banners will always be in the Lenny Center. His name will always be on the wall for accomplishments at NC State. He will always have a place in NC State history, regardless of where he ends up, whether it's back at UNCW or taking another job elsewhere. He'll always be a Wolfpacker. And so we do thank him for his time in Raleigh. It ended very abruptly. It is what it is, but he'll certainly always be remembered.
Yeah, and if I had to remember, I talked about the positives. If there was anything on the negative side that I would remember, I mean, some of the lowest seasons in NC State history happened under Keatts. I'm not going to name any names, but again, the Manny Bates injury year, 5 minutes into the season, we knew the season was over. And I remember specifically saying on there, boy, we may need to address that center situation. We may need to get ourselves a quality backup. And I don't believe the portal was a thing yet at that time. But I was like, we need to get ourselves a quality center because, if Manny Bates gets in foul trouble or anything like that, and within 5 minutes of our season starting, our season was over. That plus the none and dones. And then this year, again, the lows that we saw this year and the incessant complaining about the lack of NIL support was just like, it's clear, hey, it's been real. It's been fun. It even has been real fun. But this ride, it's time for us to get off.
Couple other things as well. We had the 24-point game against Virginia Tech. I was in the front row for that one. That will be seared into my brain, unfortunately, for the rest of my life. I'll also remember in his very first year, he beat both Duke and the Dirty Foot Club. And I tell you, I was talking that talk. That would have been junior or senior year Grayson at NC State. I was letting people know about Coach Keatts. I thought he was going to be something. And in some senses, he did turn out to be something. But beating Duke and the Dirty Foot Club in year one as the new guy on the block, yeah, that was a fun time as well. I always remember the game on the road at Chapel Hill. Al Freeman, I think he had like 27 points. He was 7 of 7 from three-point land, and Markel Johnson took that game over in overtime. I'll always remember that one as well. But something else, and I'll finish with this. Outside of the run from last year, the most important thing I'll always remember, he gave us DJ Burns. And DJ Burns is not just an NC State legend. He is a March Madness legend. And I want to take this time to shout out Gunnar Rivers Burner, put together probably the best edit I've ever seen in my life. Kenton, if you haven't seen it, it's Stephen A. Smith.
The one where he's talking about LeBron James, the second best basketball
player. But that
ain't
number one. We all know who the hell that is. DJ Burns playing over Boss Man D'Lo. I lost it. I watched it like 58 times this morning.
I have LeBron as number 2 all time in the history of basketball on my list. He ain't number 1, though. We know who the hell that is.
So, amongst other things, I will always be grateful for seeing DJ Burns in an NC State uniform. Legend forever. So thank you to Kevin Keatts. We wish you nothing but the best in the future. Brighter pastures ahead for both parties involved, and exciting times nonetheless. Coming up next, I'm also going to tell you the details of our Locked On Wolfpack Bracket Pool Challenge. Get involved if you have not already. I'll tell you the details after a quick word from our sponsors. Our third Tuesday sponsor is Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right times. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts that are ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands on a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who can deliver incredible results. Posting a job is both free and simple, and within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com, Upwork.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Last couple minutes of our Tuesday show, not exactly talking points, but I do want to tell you about the Locked On Wolfpack Bracket Pool Challenge. It returns for the second consecutive year. We ran it last year, had a good bit of entries, and we also have a prize winner. So it's free to enter for anyone. If you go onto the ESPN Tournament Challenge app or on their website and you type in Locked On Wolfpack in the groups, you'll find us. If not, you can also check our Twitter page or our YouTube community page. I posted the links in both of those. Feel free to join. We have bracket pools made for both men's and women's. There will be a prize for the winners of both, and it's a fun time. Kenton, the brackets were released, obviously, on Sunday, Selection Sunday, so I want to spend a couple minutes here talking about your thoughts on where these things may or may not be. Obviously, the men's bracket is headlined by the 1 seeds being Duke, Auburn, Houston, and Florida. Give me some thoughts about maybe your Final Four, your favorites to possibly cut down the nets. Where do you see this thing going?
Well, I think that Louisville's deep underseed is an extreme disservice to Auburn. I mean, congratulations, your reward for being the number 1 overall seed, you're going to get a team that just lost a Power 4 conference championship. you're going to get a team that has 2 losses in conference this year. And again, we're not talking about a mid-major, buddy. You're going to get a team that is as energized and playing together as well as anybody. That was down, I believe, 5 scholarship players when they played Duke, many of whom, or a few of whom, will be back against you. You know, they're underseeding and trying to, stick it to the ACC. You end up hurting one of your SEC darlings potentially, which is downright hilarious. And I hope Kelsey and company pull off the upset there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I could not believe that Louisville was an 8. I saw a tweet earlier on Monday afternoon of the top 10 in the AP poll. 1 through 4 were all 1 seeds. 5 through 8 were all 2 seeds. Louisville, who is, I think, 9 or 10, was an 8 seed, then another 3 seed. That's how egregious the seeding was for Louisville. And I'm not a Louisville fan, but just objectively speaking, that was a robbery. And then, of course, you got the Dirty Foot. I'm not even going to talk about them. Never mind. We're not going to give you our final 4 picks today. We don't want to help you out. We're going to be in this bracket challenge as well. So we'll save that for Thursday. Kenton, but give me your biggest upset that you're predicting for the first round.
I wouldn't say that this is as much of a lock as I was last year when I just knew Oakland was going to beat Kentucky. I'm not going to go as far.
You did actually call that. Kenton did call that.
But Montana, Wisconsin is one to watch because I'm telling you, I think that Wisconsin is a team that got grossly overseeded because of the fact that they play in the Big Ten and won a big game here and there. I don't think they're focused enough. I don't think that their backcourt has it to get done. I think that this is Montana's one shining moment to pull off one of the biggest upsets in this year's tournament.
It's interesting. As I was looking over this, I took a second look.
That's what I was doing. Yeah.
I actually wagered a decent amount on Montana. That kind of makes me degenerate. But Montana, hear me out. Montana is a mid-major wagon. They are a very, very good team. I will not be surprised if Montana does.
And you know what all the teams that pull off these upsets have in common? Experienced guards, they shoot the blood out the ball. And guess what Montana has? Experienced guards, and they shoot the damn blood out the ball. So I am telling you, don't be shocked if the Badgers are going home and not making around to 32. Don't be shocked. Be shocked.
Those 2 points actually lead me directly into my pick. And oddly enough, I'm going to pick the other team that was in the Big Ten championship. They actually won it. UC San Diego, I'm calling my shot, is going to beat Michigan. Something that UC San Diego does extremely well, they do not turn the ball over. Michigan, conversely, turns the ball over a lot. Michigan also does not shoot very well from 3. UC San Diego shoots it very well from 3. That smells like a potential disaster to me. And so I'm going to go ahead and mark this down. Give me UC San Diego. Interesting nugget too. First time ever making March Madness. And I think they're going to get their first win ever. They're going to knock off Michigan in the first round. One more thing. I better not see a single one of y'all pick McNeese to beat Clemson. Don't do it. I'm going to look. I better not see a single one of y'all pick McNeese to beat Clemson. We all need to row the boat in the same direction, and that involves Clemson beating McNeese so we can announce Will Wade on Friday. I got my eye on every single one of y'all. Don't do it. That will do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us your thoughts on what if it's not Will Wade? What if this thing does go sideways? Again, not trying to scare you, but what if it does go sideways? Tell us what you think will happen to NC State if that is the case. Tell us your thoughts on Coach Keatts. He actually is gone, believe it or not. That's a real thing that happened. Tell us what you will always remember him for in Raleigh. That was a moment in time, and I do think he should be remembered as such. Anything else you have on your mind? Any questions you have about the bracket pool as well, drop that in the comment box. I'll shoot you back with an answer. We'll see y'all tomorrow on Wednesday, and until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.